The morning sun cast long shadows across the marble floors of palace as Queen Regent Isabella paced furiously in her private chambers. Her silk gown rustled with each angry step, and her emerald eyes blazed with a rage that had been building for months. The source of her fury stood just outside in the grand hallway, Princess, the beloved wife of Crown Prince Alexander. Isabella had never wanted in the royal family. The young woman came from minor nobility, not the prestigious bloodline Isabella believed worthy of future queens. But Alexander had fallen deeply in love, and King Edmund had approved the marriage before his sudden illness left Isabella as regent. Now, with Edmund barely clinging to life in his sickbed, Isabella held ultimate power over the kingdom of. "Your Majesty," whispered Lord Chancellor as he entered the chamber, his weathered face showing concern. "The princess has arrived for the morning council meeting as requested." Isabella's lips curved into a cold smile. Today would be the day she finally removed this obstacle from her path to maintaining control. She had spent weeks gathering evidence, real and fabricated, to support her plan. The kingdom's treasury had shown unexplained shortfalls, and Isabella intended to blame for the missing funds. "Bring her in," Isabella commanded, settling into her ornate chair like a predator preparing to strike. Entered with grace, her auburn hair catching the sunlight streaming through the tall windows. She wore a simple blue dress that emphasized her natural beauty, completely unaware of the trap awaiting her. Behind her walked Lady, her loyal lady-in-waiting, whose worried expression suggested she sensed something amiss. "Your Majesty," said with a respectful curtsy, "you requested my presence." Isabella studied the younger woman with calculating eyes. His popularity among the people irritated her beyond measure. The citizens loved their future queen for her charitable work and genuine compassion. Market vendors spoke warmly of her visits, and children ran to greet her carriage whenever it passed through the villages. This adoration threatened Isabella's own influence and made dangerous. "Indeed I did," Isabella replied, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Please sit down. We have urgent matters to discuss regarding the kingdom's finances." Took the offered chair, folding her hands in her lap. "Of course, Your Majesty, how may I assist?" Isabella gestured to a stack of documents on the nearby table. "These are treasury reports showing significant discrepancies in our royal accounts. Money that should be present is mysteriously missing. Large sums that were designated for kingdom improvements have simply vanished." The accusation hung in the air like a poisonous cloud. Eyes widened with genuine confusion and concern. "That sounds very serious, Your Majesty. What can we do to investigate this matter?" "The investigation is already complete," Isabella said sharply, rising from her chair. "Evidence clearly points to someone with access to royal funds, someone who has been making unauthorized withdrawals and redirecting money for personal use." His face paled as the implication became clear. "Your Majesty, surely you cannot mean to suggest that I would steal from the kingdom's treasury. Such an accusation is not only false but impossible. I have never had independent access to royal funds." Isabella's mask of civility finally dropped completely. Years of resentment and jealousy poured forth in her next words. "The evidence suggests otherwise, my dear. Witnesses have come forward claiming to see you meeting secretly with treasury officials. Documents bearing what appears to be your signature authorize questionable transfers." "Those accusations are completely false," exclaimed, standing abruptly. "I have done nothing but serve this kingdom with loyalty and dedication. Every charitable project I have undertaken has been properly documented and approved through official channels." Lady stepped forward protectively. "Your Majesty, Princess' character is beyond reproach. She has personally funded many of her charitable endeavors from her own family's resources rather than burden the royal treasury." Isabella's rage intensified at this defense. "Silence! I will not tolerate this continued deception. Guards!" Heavy footsteps echoed through the chamber as 4 royal guards entered, their armor clanking ominously. Captain, a grizzled veteran who had served the crown for decades, looked uncomfortable with whatever orders he had received. "Captain," Isabella commanded with royal authority, "you will arrest Princess on charges of theft from the royal treasury, abuse of her position, and treason against the crown of." The words struck like physical blows. Treason carried the death penalty and Isabella knew this perfectly well. The charge was designed to eliminate permanently while making her supporters afraid to defend her. "Your Majesty," Captain said hesitantly, These are very serious charges. Perhaps we should wait for Crown Prince Alexander to return from his diplomatic mission before taking such drastic action. Isabella's eyes flashed dangerously. Are you questioning my authority as Queen Regent? I rule in King Edmund's name until his recovery, and my word is law. You will carry out this order immediately, or you will join her in the dungeons. Maintained her dignity even as the guards approached. Captain, I submit to arrest under protest. These charges are fabricated and the truth will emerge. I trust in justice and in my husband's love. As the guards gently but firmly took arms, Lady began to weep. This is madness, Your Majesty. The people will never accept this injustice. The people will accept what they are told, Isabella replied coldly. And they will be told that their precious princess betrayed their trust and stole their money. Was escorted from the chamber with quiet dignity, her head held high despite the circumstances. As the heavy doors closed behind them, Isabella felt a moment of triumph. With imprisoned and facing execution, nothing would prevent Isabella from maintaining her grip on power when King Edmund inevitably passed away. But Isabella had underestimated the depth of love between and Alexander, and the loyalty she inspired in unexpected places. Miles away, a messenger was already riding hard toward the border where Prince Alexander was concluding negotiations with neighboring kingdoms. The message would reach him within 2 days, and when it did, the Queen Regent would discover that her victory was premature. In the palace dungeons, sat on the cold stone bench of her cell, praying for strength and trusting that truth would prevail. She had no idea that her imprisonment would soon trigger a chain of events that would shake the very foundations of the throne and reveal the true character of everyone involved. The Game of Thrones had begun in earnest, and Isabella had just made the move that would ultimately lead to her downfall. The thundering of horse hooves echoed across the countryside as Crown Prince Alexander rode toward palace with desperate urgency. The messenger's words still rang in his ears like a nightmare he could not escape. His beloved, arrested for treason and theft, facing possible execution while he was away securing trade agreements that would benefit their future kingdom. Alexander's jaw clenched as he spurred his black stallion faster. He knew Isabella had orchestrated this entire situation, timing arrest perfectly while he was absent and unable to protect his wife. The Queen Regent had always resented popularity and influence, but Alexander had underestimated how far Isabella would go to eliminate her perceived rival. Behind him rode Sir Thomas and Sir James, his most trusted knights and closest friends since childhood. Both men shared Alexander's outrage at his treatment and had insisted on accompanying him back to the palace. Their horses strained to match Alexander's punishing pace as they covered ground toward what would undoubtedly be the confrontation of their lives. Your Highness, Sir Thomas called over the wind, we should consider our approach carefully. Queen Regent Isabella will have prepared for your return and likely stationed additional guards throughout the palace. Alexander's blue eyes burned with cold fury. Let her bring every guard in the kingdom. I will not allow to spend one more night in those dungeons based on fabricated charges. As they crested the final hill before his capital city, Alexander could see the palace towers rising majestically against the afternoon sky. Somewhere within those walls, his wife sat imprisoned while Isabella savored her temporary victory. The thought made his blood boil with protective rage. The city streets buzzed with tension and whispered conversations as Alexander's party rode through. Citizens recognized their future king immediately, and word of his urgent return spread like wildfire. Many people lined the streets, their faces showing confusion and concern about recent events. Alexander noticed how their eyes followed him hopefully, as if his presence might somehow restore order to their troubled kingdom. At the palace gates, Captain waited with a contingent of guards. The veteran soldier's expression showed relief at seeing Alexander, but also worry about the confrontation brewing between the Crown Prince and Queen Regent. Your Highness, Captain said with a formal bow, Queen Regent Isabella requests your immediate presence in the throne room. I'm sure she does, Alexander replied grimly, dismounting his horse. But first I will see my wife. Captain shifted uncomfortably. Your Highness, I have strict orders that no one may visit the prisoner without the Queen Regent's explicit permission. Alexander stepped closer to the captain, his voice low and dangerous. Captain, you have served my family faithfully for many years. Do not let loyalty to one member destroy your honor toward another. I am ordering you, as crown prince of and your future king, to take me to immediately." The older man struggled visibly with conflicting loyalties before finally nodding. "Follow me, your highness, but please understand this decision may cost me dearly." "Any consequences will be mine to bear," Alexander assured him as they entered the palace. The route to the dungeons felt longer than ever before as Alexander's anger continued building. Servants and courtiers they passed whispered nervously, clearly aware that a royal confrontation was imminent. Some looked sympathetic to plight, while others seemed uncertain about which side to support. When they reached Cell, Alexander's heart nearly broke at the sight of his beloved wife sitting on a crude stone bench, still wearing the same blue dress from her arrest. Despite her circumstances, she maintained the grace and dignity that had first captured his heart. When she saw him, tears of relief filled her green eyes. "Alexander," she whispered, rising and reaching through the iron bars to touch his face. "My love," he replied, grasping her hands tenderly. "This nightmare will end today, I promise you that." Smiled despite her tears. "I knew you would come. Isabella thought she could destroy us by separating us, but she underestimated our bond." "Tell me everything that happened," Alexander said, his voice gentle with her but still carrying undertones of fury at her treatment. Recounted the morning's events in detail, from Isabella's false accusations to the fabricated evidence and trumped-up charges. Alexander listened with growing rage, his hands clenching into fists as he heard how Isabella had twisted partial truths and created false documentation to support her case. "The treasury discrepancies are real," explained, "but I discovered them during my review of charitable fund allocations. I was preparing to report the irregularities to you when Isabella struck first. She's turned my discovery of potential corruption into evidence of my guilt." Alexander's eyes flashed with understanding. "Of course, she needed to silence you before you could expose whoever is actually stealing from the kingdom. Your arrest serves two purposes: removing you as a threat to her power and preventing investigation of the real crimes." Sir Thomas appeared at the dungeon entrance. "Your Highness, Queen Regent Isabella has sent word that she will see you now in the throne room. She emphasized that your immediate compliance is expected." Alexander kissed his forehead through the bars. "Stay strong, my love, this ends today." The throne room was filled with tension when Alexander entered. Isabella sat regally on the ornate throne that rightfully belonged to his father, surrounded by courtiers who seemed nervous about witnessing the approaching confrontation. Lord Chancellor stood beside the throne, his expression carefully neutral despite his personal reservations about recent events. "Alexander," Isabella said with false warmth, "welcome home. I trust your diplomatic mission was successful." "Cut the pleasantries, Isabella," Alexander replied coldly, using her first name rather than her title in deliberate disrespect. "Release my wife immediately and drop these ridiculous charges." Isabella's mask slipped slightly at his tone. "I'm afraid that's impossible. Princess has been lawfully arrested on serious charges backed by substantial evidence. As Queen Regent, I cannot show favoritism even to family members." "Family members?" Alexander laughed bitterly. "You've never considered family. You've resented her presence from the moment we married because she threatens your control over this kingdom." Murmurs rippled through the assembled courtiers at this open challenge to the Queen Regent's authority. Isabella's face flushed with anger, but she maintained her composure. "Your emotional attachment blinds you to your wife's crimes," Isabella replied sharply. "The evidence clearly shows." "The evidence shows nothing but your desperation to eliminate someone you see as an obstacle," Alexander interrupted. "But you've made a critical error, Isabella. You've underestimated not just innocence, but my determination to protect her." Alexander turned to address the assembled court, his voice carrying the authority of his future kingship. "Lords and ladies of, you have witnessed an injustice today. My wife has been falsely accused and imprisoned without proper investigation or due process. As Crown Prince, I formally challenge these charges and demand immediate release." Isabella rose from the throne, her face now openly showing her fury. "You dare challenge my authority in my own throne room? I rule here until King Edmund recovers, and my word is law." "Your word," Alexander said with quiet menace, "is about to become meaningless." The prince reached into his jacket and a sealed document that made Isabella's face go pale with shock. The royal seal was unmistakable, and several courtiers gasped in recognition. "This morning, before beginning my journey home, I received word from the royal physicians," Alexander announced. "King Edmund has awakened from his illness and begun his recovery. This document bears his personal seal and signature, formally ending your regency and restoring full royal authority to the crown." The throne room erupted in shocked whispers as Isabella stared at the document that had just stripped away her power. Her carefully laid plans were crumbling before her eyes, and the desperate fury in her expression showed that she was far from finished fighting. "Even if Edmund has awakened," Isabella said with vicious determination, "still faces legitimate charges that must be answered. Her guilt or innocence will be determined by proper trial, not royal favoritism." Alexander smiled coldly, recognizing that Isabella was about to make her final, fatal mistake. "Then let us discuss the real evidence, shall we? And let everyone here learn exactly who has been stealing from's treasury." The tension in the throne room reached its breaking point as Alexander stepped forward, his eyes locked on Isabella's increasingly panicked face. The assembled courtiers held their breath, sensing that secrets were about to be revealed that would shake the very foundations of their kingdom. "Lords and ladies of," Alexander began, his voice carrying across the vast chamber. "While investigating my wife's so-called crimes, I discovered some very interesting information about the real source of our treasury problems." Isabella's composure finally cracked. "Alexander, you're making a terrible mistake. The evidence against is solid and your emotional involvement." "The evidence," Alexander interrupted sharply, "leads directly to you, Isabella." Sir Thomas entered the throne room carrying a leather satchel filled with documents. Behind him walked Sir James, escorting a nervous-looking man in merchant's clothing who kept glancing fearfully at Isabella. "Meet Master," Alexander announced, "the private banker who has been handling secret transactions for certain members of our court. Please tell everyone what you told me about the Queen Regent's financial activities." Trembled as he stepped forward, his voice shaky but clear. "Your Highness, for the past 2 years, Queen Regent Isabella has been redirecting royal funds to private accounts. She claimed the transfers were for secret diplomatic purposes, but the money never returned to the treasury." Isabella shot to her feet, her face flushed with rage and desperation. "This man is lying. He's been paid to fabricate these accusations." "Really?" Alexander smiled coldly, producing another document. "Then perhaps you can explain these bank records showing regular transfers from the royal treasury to your personal account, totaling over 300,000 gold crowns." Gasps echoed through the throne room as the magnitude of Isabella's theft became clear. Several courtiers who had supported her began stepping away, distancing themselves from the scandal unfolding before their eyes. Lord Chancellor examined the documents with growing horror. "Your Majesty, if these records are authentic, this represents one of the largest cases of royal theft in history." Isabella's eyes darted around the room like a trapped animal seeking escape. "Those documents are forgeries. Alexander is so desperate to protect his wife that he's fabricating evidence against me." "Then you won't mind if we examine your private chambers and personal accounts for verification," Alexander said smoothly. "After all, an innocent person would welcome the opportunity to clear their name." The color drained from Isabella's face as she realized her trap was closing. In her desperation to eliminate, she had exposed herself to the very investigation she had hoped to avoid. Sir James stepped forward with more evidence. "Your Highness, we also found correspondence between Queen Regent Isabella and Lord Blackwood discussing plans to frame Princess for the treasury theft. The letters explicitly outline their strategy." Alexander's fury reached new heights as he processed this information. "You not only stole from our people, but you conspired to destroy an innocent woman to cover your crimes. Was investigating the missing funds and getting too close to the truth, so you decided to eliminate her before she could expose you." Isabella's mask of royal dignity finally shattered completely. Her voice became shrill with desperation as she pointed accusingly at Alexander. "You have no right to judge me. I've served this kingdom faithfully while you played at being a prince. Edmund was weak, and someone needed to secure's future. By stealing from our people and framing innocent women," Alexander's voice carried both disgust and authority. "You've betrayed everything the crown represents." Isabella's eyes blazed with cornered fury as she made her final, desperate play. I am still Queen Regent until Edmund formally resumes his duties. I order the royal guards to arrest Prince Alexander for treason and conspiracy." The throne room fell silent as everyone waited to see how the guards would respond. Captain stepped forward, his weathered face showing resolve. "I'm sorry, Your Majesty," Captain said formally, "but I serve the rightful rulers of. The evidence presented here today clearly shows that Prince Alexander acts with proper authority while you have abused your position." Isabella's support crumbled as other court members began openly declaring their loyalty to the Crown Prince. Lord Chancellor removed the official regency seal from Isabella's presence and approached Alexander. "Your Highness," said with relief, "I formally recognize your authority as Crown Prince and await King Edmund's official return to power. What are your orders regarding this matter?" Alexander looked around the throne room at the faces of his future subjects, seeing hope replacing the fear and uncertainty that had plagued them during Isabella's regency. "Queen Regent Isabella will be arrested and charged with theft from the royal treasury, conspiracy to commit treason, and abuse of royal authority," Alexander announced. "She will receive a fair trial with proper legal representation, unlike the treatment she gave my wife." "You cannot do this to me," Isabella screamed as guards approached her. "I am royal blood, I deserve respect." "You forfeited respect when you betrayed the trust placed in you," Alexander replied sadly. "Royal blood does not excuse criminal behavior." As Isabella was led away in chains, still shouting threats and accusations, Alexander felt both relief and sorrow. The woman who had helped raise him after his mother's death had revealed herself to be capable of terrible cruelty when power corrupted her judgment. Sir Thomas approached with a smile. "Your Highness, Captain has already sent word to release Princess from the dungeons. She should be here shortly." Moments later, entered the throne room with quiet dignity, her head held high despite her ordeal. The assembled courtiers burst into spontaneous applause, showing their genuine affection for their future queen. Alexander crossed the room in quick strides and embraced his wife tenderly, not caring who witnessed their reunion. "I'm sorry it took so long, my love. You should never have endured such treatment." Smiled through her tears of relief. "You kept your promise, that's all that matters now." Lord Chancellor approached the royal couple with formal documents. "Your Highnesses, I have prepared declarations clearing Princess of all charges and formally announcing the discovery of Queen Regent Isabella's crimes. How would you like to proceed with informing the kingdom?" Alexander considered carefully before responding. "We will tell our people the complete truth. They deserve to know that their future queen was falsely accused and that their trust was betrayed by someone they should have been able to rely on." Over the following days, news of Isabella's downfall and vindication spread throughout. The people's reaction was overwhelmingly supportive of their beloved princess, with spontaneous celebrations breaking out in villages and cities across the kingdom. King Edmund, still recovering but growing stronger daily, formally ended Isabella's regency and praised his son's handling of the crisis. The stolen treasury funds were recovered and returned to their proper accounts, allowing several delayed public works projects to resume. Isabella's trial proceeded fairly but swiftly, with overwhelming evidence leading to her conviction on all charges. Rather than execution, Alexander showed mercy by commuting her sentence to permanent exile stating that while justice must be served, the crown would not respond to betrayal with bloodshed. As stood on their private balcony overlooking the palace gardens, Alexander joined her in watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors. The ordeal had tested their marriage and their kingdom, but both had emerged stronger. "Do you think she truly believed her own justifications?" asked thoughtfully, referring to Isabella's claims about protecting the kingdom. Alexander considered the question carefully. "I think power corrupted her gradually until she could no longer distinguish between what served and what served her own interests. It's a reminder for us to always question our own motivations as rulers." Took his hand, feeling the warmth of their renewed bond. "Then we'll face the future together, always keeping the people's welfare ahead of our own desires." As night fell over, the kingdom rested peacefully under the protection of rulers who had proven their commitment to justice and truth. Isabella's fury had indeed erupted in the palace, but ultimately it had only served to strengthen the bonds of love and loyalty that would guide into a prosperous future. The crown had faced its greatest test, and emerged more trusted than ever, proving that righteousness and genuine care for one's people would always triumph over selfish ambition and manufactured crisis. In the end, love and justice had prevailed over jealousy and corruption, setting the stage for a reign marked by wisdom and compassion.